we're here at the Tour de France at the Visma Lisa bike trucks, and we spotted not one but two new bikes. And to talk us through them is Cervelo design engineer.
Engineering manager.
Engineering manager. So here we've got Jonas Vingegaard's Cervelo S5, but this isn't the Cervelo S5 that he's been riding for the last few years, is it?
No.
So if you can just tell us a few things about it, what's changed?
I think right off the bat, everyone's noticed the one-piece cockpit. The whole bike is brand new. Every tube has been refined with the goal of increasing our aero performance over the competition. In order to make a fast bike handle well and respond the same way, it's a very difficult thing to do and keep the stiffness high. By increasing aero performance, you usually make a bike heavier. Larger chord sections add more weight. So in order to do that, there's things that we've done. So if you look at the one-piece cockpit, driver for the one-piece cockpit is actually weight.
Yeah.
The subset of that would be aero performance, because you're cleaning up that front end, you're cleaning up the interfaces between the stem and the handlebar. So we've saved about 100 grams in the front end. Another big thing that everyone's noticed is the chord section of the fork.
Yeah, that definitely looks quite deep.
Exactly. So the head tube and the fork itself have gotten deeper, and the chord length the whole way down the legs have gotten deeper. A lot of our gains were in that for the system. So overall, the bike is about 6.3, 6.5 watts faster than the outgoing S5.
What speed is that at?
About 30 mile an hour.
Okay.
Wind tunnel testing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure everyone's aware it scales. So the faster you go, the more of a benefit you get from the aerodynamic performance.
And when you're as fast as Jonas Vingegaard,
it helps.
Every little
Absolutely
bit.
Hey mate, how are you?
Good, and you?
You're on camera though. This is going to be good.
Say hi.
Oh, that's okay.
Um,
you were filming,
No, you join in.
Yeah.
You can also, so every little bit will help. And that's basically our job, is to always make riders faster. And we look at the 1%ers, we sweat over the 1%ers. So I think it's not an easy task. It's been a long project, and it was under the riders first at Dauphiné. I think that's when. Well, it's not the first time they've ridden it, so it's the first time public saw it.
We'll do better next year.
Yeah. And this snuck through as well. So we had this in a couple of stages under Sepp at Dauphiné, and no one really noticed it, which was really good.
Sorry guys, that's our bad. But yeah, it's nice to see a little prototype UCI
Of course,
sticker.
yeah.
Always like that. And so Jonas's bike, size 51, is that right?
Yes, correct.
And he's obviously got the deep reserve wheels. I know that Jonas really likes riding the S5, even on some mountain stages.
Yeah.
So do you reckon that's going to change this year with the new R5?
Potentially. So one of the big changes for the R5 was we've normalized the fit now between the two bikes.
Okay.
So previous generations, the handling characteristics of the bike will remain the same.
Yep.
Versus the old R5, but a direct request from the team was to normalize the fit numbers between the two bikes. So the bike itself has gotten lower and it's gotten longer. So if you jump on in Jonas's case, his 51 S5, he can jump back onto the 51 R5 and it'll feel fit exactly the same.
And it's the R5 that's changed to
Correct.
match the S5.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. There's a few other interesting little specifics that I've seen on this bike. 160mm cranks.
Yeah. There is ongoing experiments with us and the team and SRAM on crank length and optimizing fit and power output.
Yep.
I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but
it's interesting that Cervelo is involved in that process.
Absolutely, yeah, because I think it's never going to be an isolated occurrence, right? If we are able to go and find that there is a benefit for shorter crank lengths, then we can drop the bottom bracket, we can change the fit geometry and the handling geometry of the bike to better suit these setups. So absolutely, it's a really close collaboration with us, SRAM, and the team in
really cool.
optimizing for that. Yeah.
I didn't realise that was the case. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. I've also noticed some really lightweight hardware
Yes.
up here. Titanium.
The bolts are titanium, but the crossbars themselves are aluminium. So as I mentioned, everything was looked over with a fine-tooth comb. So the seat post profiles between the two bikes remain the same. The manufacturing process that we used and the layup slightly changed, so we could pull out some weight. So the post itself got about 30. The post and the hardware got about 30 grams lighter, normally on both bikes. There's a carbon cradle as well instead of our old aluminium cradle. And it might not seem like much, but when you think about a pendulum, and the lower the weight around the bottom bracket, the better, right? So if you've got weight high up in a system, in a long, unseated climb, it eventually adds up to pretty significant energy loss. So
Rotational weight.
essentially,
I
yeah.
never thought of
Yeah.
as a
It's huge.
saddle
Yeah.
seat
I
post
mean, it's not
rotational
huge.
weight.
Relatively, it's 30 grams. It's not much, but every little bit will add up.
Yeah, when you're racing at that level.
Exactly.
And so we've got a second new bike over here.
Yes.
The R5. I must admit, it looks quite familiar.
Yes.
It looks quite a lot, like the previous generation.
Yes.
But these are really skinny.
Yeah.
It also looks quite similar to the 2013
Yeah.
R5.
Absolutely.
Of course, that was rim brake, and this one is
Correct.
disc brake only.
Yep. So we're limited a lot in what we can do from a manufacturing standpoint to get the weight down, right? So there is
Limited by UCI.
UCI, the current manufacturing processes, the current materials that we have. So that very first generation R5 rim and disc back in 2016, when we had the disc one come out as well, kind of hit on a shape profile that was really optimized for a balance of stiffness and weight. So we can make in making a really aero bike, you make an aero bike, it will be heavier. So you have to remember to be like, okay, we need to keep the weight down and we need to keep the stiffness up. The opposite of that is in reducing weight, you can lose a lot of bottom bracket stiffness, head tube stiffness. So you've got to be cognizant of that when you start pulling weight out of the frame. So the team spent a lot of time in FEA optimizing tube shapes, I would say refining the tube shapes that we've already discovered back in 2016 that were really good structurally. Every single tube on the bike is unique and different. The seat tube, the seat stay top tube junction got a little bit higher. The top tube a little bit narrower. This is also why it kind of snuck through in Dauphiné and no one noticed, because it is very, very familiar.
So raising this junction,
yes.
Will that not mean shorter seat post and therefore less comfort?
So yes, in short, yes. What we had found from feedback from the riders at Visma was we were getting we almost added too much compliance in the previous generation bike. So for any non-professional rider, it was a good thing. But what we were finding was seated efforts, or the feedback at least in seated efforts, we had a little bit of side-to-side sway. So increasing that top tube junction, we were able to reduce that slightly, as well as then with the layup in the seat post itself, not lose any of the vertical compliance, front to back compliance. So little changes like that is that direct feedback we have with the team. So absolutely, yeah. So the post itself, like I mentioned with this, optimize the manufacturing layout for that. The hardware, so the cradle and the crossbars and the bolts themselves are the same between the two bikes. Like you pointed out with the seat stays.
They're not dropped either.
No.
Which is a rarity these days, I'd say. It's got quite classic lines.
Absolutely. And I think it's what we talked about, where structurally this is the most efficient shape for what this bike is. So we have very unique tools for very unique very unique solutions for specific cases. And in this case, we are optimizing weight and stiffness. And in that case, this is where we're finding the best structural solution to be. That also then plays into the benefit of manufacturing. So if you're able to work in this cyclical shape of optimize for aero, optimize for structure, design for manufacturing, you're able to pull out all these 1% gains. So.
And I believe the UCI has a 10 mil limit on seat stays.
Yeah.
They look like they
on the limit.
Bang on it.
Yeah, on the limit with paint. So we really with paint. Yeah. So
can you explain that to us?
They are.
So they're a bit skinny, and then they're painted to bring them up to it. Is that
essentially? We're talking decimal points of millimeters.
Yeah.
But that's the case of where we are. With trying to get the weight out of this bike and trying to really push the boundaries of it.
But is paint not heavier than carbon?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
No.
That is
yeah.
pushing the limits, that is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I've also noticed on the front brake caliper, you've got the bolts coming all the way through the front fork.
Yes, so...
again, for weight saving?
Absolutely, yeah. The same approach that we have for the rear brake mount, where it's an open tube, bolts go through.
Yeah.
We kind of had a moment where we're like, why don't we do that on the front? So having co-molded aluminium in a fork is generally heavier. With the shape restrictions of this fork, you're limited to how much how deep that internal bladder can go. So in carbon, you have an internal bag that blows up, and you have an external mold and heat and pressure, and then you get a nice part. In removing that and opening that section up, you're able to get the bag all the way down, so you're able to remove all that redundant material that was there. So as I mentioned earlier, as a percentage of weight saving, it's huge. For a fork that's 300 grams, taking almost 20 grams out of that is a pretty big saving. So
what are the claimed weights for this bike? Are you able to share them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the painted 56, so we always quote 56, always being, except for the P series or a P5, where we'll look at a 54. R5, S5, all these bikes are always a 56. 650 gram frame painted and a 300 gram fork.
Well under the sub kilo.
Oh, easy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then complete bikes, well, I guess these ones are going to be built up to the UCI weight.
6.8. Yeah. No, we have a bike in the office that we've built, not exotic parts, SRAM, one by setup, and it's a 56 and about bang on 6 kilos, 5.95, with no power meter but one by and speed, Vittoria speed tires. So
I guess that just leads me on to one more question.
Yep.
Cervelo has sort of doubled down on its two-bike approach.
Yes.
Two-bike race bike approach.
Yep.
And we've seen lots of other manufacturers going to one bike to rule them all.
Yeah.
You know, the terminology and things. So can you just explain to us why you think this is the best way forwards?
Because you'll always have a compromise. There'll always be a condition in a certain race where you don't have the best tool for the job. It's not the easiest solution. It's hard. It's harder than having one bike. Then we also offer a bike that does that in the Soloist. So there are races and there are cases where that does work, and there are cases where this is the bike of choice, and that is more specific for that. And I think that's part of our ethos. We're always there to make riders faster, and we're always there to make the best tool for the job. So.
Can see the real attention to detail. I never realised they're using a Garmin 840 in them on the flat stages, and then they've got the is that 140?
I think it's 140. Yeah, 130, 140, the baby one.
Just to save a bit more weight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's that goes to show you how we also get pushed, right? Where it's working. It truly is a beneficial relationship being with Visma, because where that level of detail is what the expectation for us is now.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's good for us.
They look like cool bikes, and looking forward to seeing how they get on.
Likewise. Thank you.
Cheers.